Hey guys, my name is Gabby and thank you so much for tuning into this week's True Talk. This week we're going to be talking about what it means to look different as a follower of Christ and how Speaking Life can fit into that. This is part 2 of our True Talk Speaking Life series, so if you haven't seen part 1, you should go check it out. I will leave a link for it in the description below. And with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the video. So as I said, we are going to be focusing on what it means to look different as a follower of Christ. But before we dig into that, we kind of need to get some of these Christian lingo terms, as I like to call them, out of the way, because a lot of us that have grown up around the church or in the church, we have heard these words and these phrases so much and they've been explained to us so they make sense to us. But when we say them to people that maybe haven't grown up around church or haven't been in the church or anything like that at all, they're not going to have any meaning because they've never been explained. So first, what is a follower of Christ? A follower of Christ is someone who has decided to give their life over to Christ. Meaning that they have said, you know what, God, I believe that you are the one and only God. I believe that you sent your son to die for me and that you raised him back from the dead, and that through that all of my sins were taken away. Sin being everything that we have done against God and against the rules that God set up, and that we have repented of those things. We ask for forgiveness, and repenting is meaning doing a 180, trying to go away from what you've done and not do those things again. Not that we don't do them again because we tend to fall like that, but that we try our best not to do those things again. So that is the first part, but what about the second part? What does it mean to look different? Well, in Romans 12:2, the Bible tells us, "Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." What we're going to focus on is the do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world. So when the Bible refers to either this world, or sometimes it can also say the flesh, it is referring to the basic, immoral, sinful human nature that all of us are born with. We all are selfish, self-serving. We don't want to be told what to do, how to do it. We want to do our own thing, whether that we think that that's moral or immoral. And we all have different thoughts about what's moral and immoral, so nobody is ever on the same page when it comes to that. Where if we become followers of Christ, we decide, you know what, I don't know what's best, God does, I'm going to follow his rules. And so that's what's going to be looking different. We are going to live in a way that is not of our own rules and our own wants, but it's what God wants. We are living according to his rules. So that is what it means to be looking different. We are living in a way that is different from the rest of the world that is living in this basic, sinful, immoral human nature that we are all born with. And some of us decide to stay there, and some of us decide, you know what, God knows best, and I'm going to follow what he says. So that is what makes us look different, is because we are following his rules, not our own. So Jesus also talks about this in Matthew 5:16. He tells us, "In the same way, let your light shine before men, that they may see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven." So as followers of Christ, we are called to let our light shine before men. So how do we let our light shine before men? What does that even mean? What does that look like? Well, when we constantly use our words and our actions and our deeds to point to God, that is going to be what is going to let our light shine. And so here's something else with followers of Christ. We need to realize that we are not the ones that are shining. Jesus is shining through us. Picture this. It's almost like you are a mirror, and let's say that Jesus' love and his grace is shining down like a beam of light. You are always doing your best to line up with that beam of light and make sure that that's reflecting off of you onto other things. Where a lot of us will tend to, even though his beam of light never moves, because his will and what he wants for us and what he did for us and things like that, his stuff never changes, but we do. We want to sometimes take over and do our own thing, so we'll move over and I want to go do this, so I'm going to move over this way. And then so we stop reflecting Jesus because we are out of his beam of light. So as followers of Christ, we are called to be a light and to always be lining ourselves up with what he wants and making sure to live in a way that is reflecting him to those around us. So we are constantly saying and doing things that are opposite of what we want, what our human nature wants. And just because we decide to give our lives over to God and to become followers of Christ doesn't mean that that human nature just goes away. It doesn't mean that we still don't struggle with that. That's the thing, is it doesn't mean that the people that are still living in that are any different than we are. The only difference is that we are trying to live in a different way where they are not. But we still struggle with the same things that they struggle with. So we can't put ourselves on a pedestal, because I know a lot of us Christians decide to do that, and that is just flat out wrong, because there is no difference between me and somebody else that doesn't know Christ. The only difference is that I have Christ and they don't, and I want to do my best to show Christ to them in what I do. So in all of these things, and all these things we're saying, all these things we're doing, we can always give God the glory and God the credit, and we're constantly pointing. It's kind of like those videos that you watch that people go to these crowded places, like maybe a mall or something like that, and they stop in the middle of the aisle and they just look up and stare at the ceiling, or they point, and see how long it takes somebody to look and see what they are pointing at or what they are looking at. And I bet you could try that and that people will fall for it, and it's kind of funny, to be honest. But anyway, so it's the same thing when you are constantly using your words and your actions and your deeds to point to God. If you're constantly, I said this even though I wanted to say this, so I can do that because of God. I did this even though I wanted to do this, and this would have been bad, and I can do that because of God. This because of God. That because of God. So when you're constantly doing this pointing, eventually somebody is going to stop and they're going to be like, what are you pointing at? I don't understand what you are wanting me. Oh, now I see what you were pointing at. And that opens up a door to you to be able to show and share what God has done in your own life, and see where He takes it from there with that other person. So I know it sounds really scary, but it is okay to be different. And I know the world constantly wants to tell you, just fit in, just blend in, that's not what you want, you don't want to stand out. But like I said, it's not us standing out, we're just reflecting Jesus. So it's okay to be different, embrace it. We need to live our lives in a way to point to Jesus, to always be giving God the glory and God the credit. So that is the challenge for you and I this week. Let's see how we can act different. Let's see how we can go against the current of society and live in a way that is pleasing to God. Live in a way, let's not lie when we want to lie. Let's not cheat somebody out of something even though we want to. Let's not say that negative thing even though that person on our terms we think may deserve that. In reality, that doesn't matter, because what God says is more important, and what God says is what we should be looking to follow. So let's see how we can follow His rules instead of trying to do our own and live in our own human nature, and see how that can affect people in a positive way. So that was part 2 of this True Talk Speaking Live. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel, and also leave a comment down below. Let me know some things you'd like to talk about in the future, or if you have any questions, also put those down below, and I will do my best to get back to you and answer them to the best of my ability. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that we will see you back next week when we talk about how we can speak life into other people's lives, and how that not only affects that person but can also affect those around them. So hopefully we will see you back for that. I hope you guys have a great week, and I will see you next time. Bye!